Welcome to Down to Dunk. I'm your host, Andrew Schlecht. We're part of the Athletic Podcast Network. With me, as always, on Mondays is my good friend, Michele Berra. Michele, what's up?
Well, I'm not in my usual recording spot. Very far from it, but we'll give it a try. You can hear crickets, cars, storming and screaming kids, and if we go way too long, which we could tonight,
Yeah.
a storming wife. So it's what it can happen. But it's a day for the ages in Thunderland. So I think any place will work, I guess.
It's an unbelievable day for the Thunder. I mean, this has got to be outside of like the Paul George mellow summer.
Mhm.
This is probably the best summer they've ever had. And the best summer they've had when they have a contending team like already in place, because they just they were never able to get those guys. Like you heard, I just vividly remember the summer where you started hearing the Pau Gasol rumors, and you just thought, oh, like that guy would help so much. And you started hearing stuff about Hartenstein, and like for me, for the most part, I just couldn't get myself there for a number of reasons, and I was wrong about so much of it, but I would say that like a lot of it was I just didn't know that they would want to pay a center that wasn't a shooting center. He does fill that role well, will fill this role well for the Thunder because of his passing, and he does have touch out to like 15 feet, pretty good. I also just didn't know that he would want to leave New York, even for the pay raise.
Yeah.
You know, that's that team, and it's been well documented and reported by New York writers and beat writers that he had a hard time with this decision. Like this wasn't a simple decision. And from what I understand, it wasn't just the money, which money is a huge part of this, but it was also just the situation and the fact that it's a winning situation. It's a situation where he gets to play like the style of basketball that he knows is good and that fits the way that he likes to play. And so I think he's obviously a tremendous upgrade for them. I mean, he's one of their best 5 players now. And he's like to be able to essentially you take away Giddey, you add Caruso and Hartenstein, you get Topic, who's like this high level first round pick, you get Dylan Jones, you get AJ Mitchell, which are both kind of flyers of like maybe they work, maybe they don't. But that is a ridiculous week for the Thunder to be able to add that many, or I guess a couple weeks. We're talking about Caruso. Just an unbelievable outcome for them. They have upgraded their roster in a tremendous way and in a way that is so functional, which is, I think, is like the main thing, is that this doesn't take shots away from anybody. All this does is accentuate all the things that the best 3 players do. And like that to me shows the commitment level that they have to those 3 and this really working and for it working for a long time. And so Hartenstein, great screen setter, rebounder, passer, play finisher. Caruso, elite defender on wings. And then the other guys are, you know, the guys that they drafted are just like, if any of them work out, like you're in the money. Like they've done a tremendous job. And I think it's pretty easy to say right now that if you think that they're the best team in the Western Conference next year, you're not crazy.
They're not crazy, mainly because they were last year, and they improved so much with what they did. I mean, let's start with the Caruso deal, because I think it's functional to understand where they went with Hartenstein. And I love the fact that you point out hey, you're not basically taking shots away from anybody. Giddey was taking, I think, 12 shots. Caruso will not reach that number. But Caruso helps you in a very defined weakness that you had in the playoffs, which was, hey, can we add another shooter that we don't pay when the opponents have his best five guys out?
Yeah.
And Isaiah Joe, even if Isaiah is extremely good in terms of shooting and he improved so much in terms of defense, is not that guy. I mean, Dallas could expose Joe a little bit. Wiggins, kind of the same ballpark. Not the same shooter by gravity, I would say, a little bit better defender. Not a guy that you can slide on Luka and say, okay, this is your guy now. With Caruso, you have a great shooter. I would say a good enough shooter where you have to really be mindful about where he is, especially if he goes into the corners, or if he's open. And then you have a guy that can be your best point of attack defender.
Yeah.
The other glaring issue that OKC had in terms of every advanced metric that you want to find is when we face a guy that is big, or when we play in general without Chet Holmgren on the court. What is our answer? And the answer was Jay Will.
Mm-hmm.
By any metric, this was a high negative for OKC, especially in the Dallas series. In the Dallas series, the non-Chet minutes were abysmal. And not because necessarily Jay Will is some sort of bad center. It's because OKC needs something else on offense when Chet is not there. And the gravity that Jay Will had was basically none. So yes, if he makes shots, those counts. But in general, you don't have the space to operate. Hartenstein will not help in that regard because he's not a shooter, even if he had like a few seasons where he was attempting a couple, which I think it will come back, to be honest. But it's not the case. The case is screening. The case is positioning, being a very good passer, a guy that you can basically unlock as a guy who can really pass off of short rolls and stuff like that, maybe ignite your shooters. And defensively, he can really help you, both against guys like Embiid and also in general to be a better rebounder, to be an anchor defensively, a guy who talks, a guy who knows how to play defense at a very high level and can protect the rim decently. So I really do think that if you just cut in half the difference between how bad OKC was without Chet, and basically split a little bit the difference, then OKC already this season could have been in the finals. Hartenstein, I think, can do a little bit better. You can do positive lineups with Hartenstein as your big man, especially if you find a good pick and roll partner that you can pair him with. Knock knock, Topic is there.
Yep.
Like, he will not play next season, but he is a pick and roll guy. And I do think that one of the avenues to maximize Giddey was, hey, starting off the bench, play him in certain units where you really need a little bit more of playmaking, and maybe have some chemistry with the center. Now you have also a blueprint for what comes next.
Yeah, I've seen some people talking about the price tag, and it's like, guys, like, you can't have it both ways. You can't say, oh my gosh, we never get free agents here. We'll never get free agents here. And then when you get them, say, oh my gosh, we've overpaid for them. One, it's essentially a 2-year deal. It's not dissimilar to what was done with Bruce Brown, where like that deal, and not to say like Hartenstein is going to be a vehicle to get another player. He could be, but I think that they actually want him to play. But man, like, you can't have it both ways. Like, this is the best free agent the Thunder have ever gotten. Just to get the meeting with him and then to actually get him to come here, it was going to take a balloon payment to get him. He was in a great situation with New York. The Knicks are going to be one of the best teams in the NBA next year. And to pry him away from that, it's going to take a lot. And it's not only like the Thunder can offer a lot for him in terms of like winning and the quality of the basketball and a good role. Like, he's going to be offered all of that. But he had that in New York too. And so, listen, he is going to help this team quite a bit next year. And you can't look at the stats. The people that are just looking at the stats, like, they're not going to say everything. Just like with Caruso, like, neither one of those guys, their raw stats don't tell you the whole picture. They don't tell you that these guys share the ball well, that they play outstanding defense, that they fit into a system. Like, they don't tell you those things. You know, you could have gotten somebody like Valanciunas is a much more productive player at times, but the difference between those two with the price tag is probably fair, because of the impact. And so I can't get there with people saying like
Jonas was a seed.
Like, what the price tag is. Like, I just can't. I can't get there.
Against the Thunder, I mean, the reason why, I mean, I still believe that Jonas was not the worst player against the Thunder in that series.
Yeah.
But I mean, Giddy hooked him at the rim.
Mm-hmm.
Let's repeat together.
Yep.
Giddy cooked him.
Yep. He did.
So,
He did.
and Giddy could not do anything at the rim with Gafford and
Mm-hmm.
Lively.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that this should be, hey, I mean, Valanciunas terrible, Gafford superb defender. No, Lively is,
Mm-hmm.
but it tells you how much of a difference a big man can make. And
Mm-hmm.
Hartenstein is not Rudy Gobert, but by many defensive metric, is good enough. He's above average in terms of defender in the paint and in general defender. So
And a better offensive player.
Oh yeah. So this is the center that OKC is going to pay. I don't know if there are already details about how much of a year one balloon this is. I didn't see it before starting the pod, but I was doing other stuff.
Yeah, I haven't seen the exact numbers yet.
Okay,
but I mean,
but
honestly,
it could
like,
be starting over 30, around 30 maybe.
yeah, but
The entire cap space.
Like, what
no,
does
no,
it?
no.
Even, yeah,
no, no.
Like,
I mean, because
you're at the top of the West, and you just added
Sure.
to your stockpile of players, and like, I know that you don't care. I'm just talking about people in general. I'm not.
But we need to help like people understanding the meaning of this money. So
yeah, Spotrac has it at 30.1 million, is what Great Bape in the chat says. So
yeah, 30.1, and then decreasing by 2-3 millions a year, something like that.
That would be my guess. And then, but the third year was reported to be non-guaranteed.
Yeah. So, like right now, you can consider the first 2 years as a signing bonus for Hartenstein. And the point is, if you have a great place to live in, and they pay you $72 million to live there, in order to make you move somewhere else, you really need to get an incentive. Mm-hmm. Winning, like the potential of winning, because you never know. I mean, you think you find like a great solution for your job to maximize your talents, and then it doesn't happen that way. So, like, it's not automatic that winning is something that makes you move. But then, like, this financial investment should be really seen as, hey, we really want you here. Yeah. And 30 this year, yes, they may have done some other move, like they could have signed Jonas and a wing. I don't think that OKC really needs to increase their rotation by another 4 or 5 guys, and I'm not sure that like fifth starter is out there. I mean, we all seen how much Paul George has made in contractually wise. I'm not sure that OKC has an appetite to sign a guy like George for 4 years at those numbers. Right. Other wings, I mean, if you are in the mood of, hey, the summer does not make any sense if they don't sign like a why I'm blanking on the Jess Walker. If we don't sign Jess, please reconsider. He was great in the G League. Let's not harp on rookies that may make sense. I mean, right. Jarris Walker has the same chances of success in OKC than Ousmane Dieng has next season. So we got that. We already have that. OKC has Us in the roster. The point is you have one shot to get the player that you know can really work in your system, that fix a lot of stuff and doesn't move your cap sheet in the future. Because if Hartenstein is sensational with OKC, they will just try to extend him. And the fact that they paid him a lot already makes it even easier.
Makes it really
if he's terrible, okay. In 2 years, you have all the avenues to say, okay, Isaiah, we tried, and it was not a great success. So it is in so many ways the perfect contract.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean it's just the cost of doing business at this point too. Yeah. And I don't. People are asking about the starting lineup. I honestly just don't know. my sense is that Chet is still thought to be like the center of the team, but I think Hartenstein's a player that he can play next to, and I think that he's a guy that will certainly take the backup minutes from Chet.
Yeah.
And then I think that it's something they didn't have last year, and something that my colleague Mo DeKeel talked about a lot is like just having like different looks to throw at teams in the playoffs is really important. Yeah. And this is a way for them to get there. Like they have the ability to go really small. They have the ability to go really big. You know, you could play Shea, Caruso, J-Dub, Hartenstein, and Chet together.
I think that is the starting unit, by the way.
It very well could be. It very well could be. You could also put Dort in there. You can also put Case and Wallace in there. They just have a lot of
whoa. Yes.
Isaiah Joe, Wiggins. Like they have tons of options now that they really didn't have. They could really only play the one way, and they had Jay Will to come in and play those minutes. And I think Jay Will's still really young, and like Jay Will can still develop, but he's 21 years old. You know, to bring in somebody that's two guys that are ready to play and can contribute, and you basically took one dude away in Josh Giddey that was in your top 10 in minutes played, and added two guys that are going to be heavy rotation players for the Thunder. Like your roster was going to improve no matter what. If they just ran it back and did nothing this summer besides draft these guys, and basically Dylan Jones is the only playable rookie that they have. If they ran it back, they were going to be better. Like, period. They would have been a better team. The fact that they brought in two guys that are two-way players, that are low usage, that accentuate what the team does, the sky's the limit now for this team. And on top of all of that, they didn't use any first-round draft picks or future first-round picks as capital going out to make these moves, and they still have everything. And now that Paul George has left the Clippers, not only can you be excited about what the Thunder have done in-house, but the fact that these picks are looking more valuable by the day that are in LA, because they're still just trying to hold that thing together for the Clippers moving into this new building. And those are the kinds of situations that blow up. And those are the kind of situations that lend to, I mean, it feels very Brooklyn Nets-ish right now with what's happening there with these older guys still trying to cobble things together and keep it, and then it just blows up. Now they may not get the number 3 pick, like the Celtics did, but if they got another top 10 pick next year, would you be stunned? Like, I would not be stunned.
No, I would not. I would be stunned probably afterwards, but that's another story. It's before getting into the Clipperland. This was like Hartenstein was the shiniest of the thing that Presti and staff did, but I think that the other two signings are such a high value moves.
Oh my gosh!
That I can't even start. I mean, if you think that the Hartenstein is expensive, take this peak of what Presti did today. With 50 millions, you have Hartenstein, Isaiah Joe, and Wiggs.
Yeah.
Like, this is nuts.
Yeah,
this is like incredible value. These are 3 guys that will play in your top 9, top 10 rotation, and probably top 9. And you have extremely controllable long-term deals for qualities that are a premium in the NBA. Shooting, and like just being a versatile wing in Wiggins that can also shoot the basketball. Like, these 2 deals to me are something else in terms of why they were signed. I really believe that, and the more I see, read, and listen to what Presti and his team and Mark Dignold and the players say, that they are doing something in a very different way in OKC. Something in terms of character, paradigms, a view of their lives. It's different. It's not really common to see an organization work with such chemistry and such unique goals. And I think that both Joe and Wiggs could have gotten maybe Joe could have gotten 60 over 4 years, and maybe Wiggs something like that over 5. They got less, 10 millions, 12 millions less to stay on a team that gave them purpose, gave them really real opportunities, and trust them. Like Isaiah Joe had that one game in Dallas. For many players, it's hey, you do that, and then it's a no show for the next 4 or 5 games because there is this other guy that should play above you. OKC is not about that, and it's clear. It's about giving real opportunities to their guys, and if you take the opportunity, you will be rewarded. And I do think that this is real for OKC. And so those two are just a testament of what a great organization OKC is. And it's just inspiring, to be honest, as a worker. Like, how can I replicate that into my day job? Is it possible to replicate? How can I learn how to do that? And to me, those two deals, which are maybe simple in the grand scheme of things that Presti did this offseason, are to me one of the best things that he did.
Yeah, just locking those guys in long term on outrageously reasonable deals. Those deals are going to look so good in just a couple of years. They look good today, but they're going to look even better as time goes on. And you lock in. I mean, the guys that played key rotation minutes in the playoffs last year, your top 8 guys. I mean, all you lost was Giddey. It's Wiggins and Joe are 7 and 8. Casey Wallace was 5th. He's another guy that we haven't talked a lot about, but I think some of these moves really help push like the development of Casey Wallace and Chet forward quite a bit because they're just going to have more touches and more creation opportunities with Giddey not there. And then same for, I think that Hartenstein is going to help J-Dub so much. If those guys are running the second unit, like J-Dub is running a DHO with Hartenstein, like there's not a lot you can do there because they can both make a play. And I think J-Dub is going to be lethal next year. I think like he has a chance to really make a jump. He's going to year 3.
Yeah.
He already made a jump, and I think he's going to make another one. And I think Hartenstein's screening is going to help him a ton.
Yeah. And his passing can unlock something that I think J-Dub should and probably will work on this offseason. I was like texting with you about this earlier today.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking Paul George and his 3-point rate over the years. He started off a little bit higher than J-Dub at around 30-31% earlier in his career, and now he's at more than 40. I do think that J-Dub, which is at 24%, can really grow because he has a steady shot. And sometimes in the second unit, the issue was, hey, who can really unlock J-Dub? Well, in this second unit with Caruso and Hartenstein, pretty like the chances are pretty high that both can unlock J-Dub as a shooter a little bit more.
Yeah.
He can play on ball, he can play DHOs, he can play pick and rolls with J-Dub, but he can also be the guy who stands in roams outside of the 3-point line, ready to cut, ready to dunk, and ready to take shots if you really leave him open. So I think that also this is something that can unlock the second unit in so many ways, and it's doable. I mean, he has a great shot, so I really think that this could be also another thing that we look in 2 years and like this is just sick.
Yeah, I think that helps a ton. And just to circle back on the deal in general, the thing that set this whole thing up to even be possible is the fact that they were able to clear so much cap space by trading for Gordon Hayward.
Thank you, Gordon.
This is Gordon's biggest contribution to the Thunder, is just having this big fat contract that expired. But if you don't make that trade, you have to do some work in order to get off of those contracts to make it work. And it's not that easy right now. This is not, I mean, take a look around. New York would have loved to offload more money in order to not be hard capped, but they haven't been able to do it. And they're still working to do it. But man, they haven't been able to do it. And it was a really good time to add flexibility at the trade deadline. And we all know Gordo didn't work out here. It was a disaster in many ways. But ultimately, he didn't hurt the team that much.
No.
And then also, he helped the team tremendously just by having a big expiring contract that allowed them to go after Hartenstein. And I mean, essentially, you're replacing Gordon Hayward with Hartenstein, and you're replacing Josh Giddey with Caruso. And like, those are two pretty big upgrades, I would say.
And I mean, those, if you look now at those updates, you can also see why Presti didn't go for Gafford and PJ Washington. I mean, he really could have done both deals. But now, I do think that if you look now at those, would you really prefer lose to the Celtics and have those two guys for many years? Or now having a real chance to get two guys that play your way, that you can trust in high-stakes games, because they both played there. I mean, Hartenstein was amazing last year in the playoffs, and Caruso has championship pedigree. So, I mean, you also see now a better picture of what patience bring you, and what the plan was. And clearly, if Hartenstein doesn't say yes, and he loves New York more than all the other things that OKC can offer, I mean, this could have been a loss.
Yeah.
But you gave yourself a real opportunity, and you just put in the work to maximize your odds. And I mean, today we're sitting here and saying, "Wow, this really paid off."
Mm-hmm.
But let's go back to the Clippers, which is the future.
Juicy. I do want to read just this tweet from Stephen Bondi, who works for the New York Post. He said, "I heard from multiple people how tough a decision it was for Hartenstein to leave the Knicks. He really wanted to stay. He loved his time with the Knicks. The difference in average salary is almost double, though. Plus, the cost of living in is cheaper in OKC. All that's true." And Presti must have made a heck of a pitch yesterday to get him to come. And obviously money is a big part of it, and it's fair to recognize that. But I do think that, from what I understand, basketball, the kind of basketball matters to him. And if that is true, man, I would have loved to be in the room to hear that, just the basketball pitch in general. I bet it was tremendous. I bet it was a tremendous pitch. So, okay, let's talk about these juicy picks that the Thunder have now. So next year, the Thunder have swap rights with the Clippers.
Unprotected.
Unprotected. So just look at what happened in the lottery this year. You just don't know what's going to happen, because the Atlanta Hawks jumped up to the number 1 pick in the draft. And they were not the worst team in the league. So you just don't know. You give yourself a chance if you're there. They have swap rights there. Then you move to 2026. Clippers unprotected pick in 2026. They just get it handed to them. And then 2027, they have swap rights again with the Los Angeles Clippers, unprotected.
That is.
They have
crazy.
3 consecutive years of control over this Clippers pick. And if you're looking at what's going on in LA, Paul George leaves for nothing. Kawhi Leonard can't play in the playoffs due to injury. James Harden, God bless him, is, re-signed with them on a really good deal. I think he'll help them. But boy, oh boy. Like that is getting juicier by the day. And not only that, you look at the Western Conference.
Aren't you, by the way, scared about the picture that Kawhi posted on Instagram?
Which one? The why? Wait, explain to me why you're scared.
I mean, he's such a weirdo. I think he can just stop playing basketball tomorrow, and I would not.
I'm not scared about that.
Surprised.
That's not exciting.
No, scared if you are the Clippers. I mean, he looks kind of lost, and like, wow, like it's something. I mean, I've seen people like going into wild places like Chris Bosh, but he looked like an NBA player doing that.
Yeah, I know.
Kawhi is he's a real weirdo,
He is a
and
strange guy.
yeah,
There's just no doubt about that. And I mean, listen, they lost Paul George, who had a really nice season last year.
yeah,
Like Paul played really well last year, and they're going to have to replace his 3-point production. They're going to have to
which
replace his
you
points,
can't
rebounds,
with
assists.
normal guys.
No, you can't. I mean, he had a tremendous season, and so trying to replace that, I mean, you want to give James Harden more usage. You want to give the ball to Norman Powell. I mean, the canary in the coal mine to this whole thing for me is the fact that they were willing to sign Kevin Porter Jr. to a deal, who was a tank commander in
Yeah,
Houston and a felon and a guy that is just a complete disaster of a person.
yeah.
It's like, why would you be willing to do that? Like, why are you willing to do that? That to me just makes no sense whatsoever. I don't get that. They're going to trade Russ.
Hmm.
Apparently, the Denver Nuggets didn't learn the lesson the Lakers learned, in that they said, you know what? After KCP leaves, why don't KCP for Russ? Like, can we do that kind of deal? I don't
On
get it.
with Jokic passing the ball to Russ, he surely will shoot better
See,
from three, and he will play defense
apparently,
for
Jokic is
for
pushing behind it.
82 games.
Yeah, I I don't know. I mean, the NBA is hilarious in so many ways, and this is definitely one of them. But if you're looking at what's going on with the Clippers, you can't guarantee that these are going to be lottery picks, because I mean, they won 51 games last year, but they lose their best player, a guy who played 74 games last year, scored 22 points per game, and don't have the means to replace him. I mean, it's going to be tough. They did get Nick Batum back. They did sign Derek Jones Jr. and they signed KPJ. That's just not going to do it. So I'm very, that's something to watch for, if, as a Thunder fan. Not only is your team going to be outrageous this year, but
Do you think that Ballmer signed on KPJ because they just said to him, we're going to sign KP? Oh, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. That's nice. Yeah, go for it. Something like that.
the
I mean,
wrong
it's
one.
yeah, exactly. Well, there was a time when there was this name kind of fiasco with I don't remember who was the player with Brooks. Yeah, with the Brooks, Dillon and Marshawn.
Oh
Hey,
yeah,
maybe it's the
that's
same
true.
thing.
That's true. That's
We're
true.
getting Brooks. Nice,
Nice,
fine. I can
sweet.
sign off on that. No, Marshawn. What?
Oh, yeah. I mean, and maybe they just showed him his raw stats: 19, 5 and 5. Hey,
Hmm. We can work with that.
that's our Paul George replacement, KPJ.
Is this the thing that finally makes Ty Lue regretting his position and maybe looking elsewhere?
Can you
There are
imagine?
like many coaching gigs. The
There are many.
Detroit one, oops, no, that has been sold in a very weird
God, they
and
signed Tobias
unexpected
too.
way.
Oh my gosh, they signed Tobias.
Yeah,
This is like the same old Pistons. It's like, what's going on here?
I was so into Langdon, like very brainy kind of player. He used to play in Italy. I loved him.
Like
And
chess guy,
uh,
big chess
also,
guy.
yeah. So I said, okay, this is something new. And then Tobias and I mean JB. I mean it's okay. JB is a great coach. Why do you have to go 5 years? Like why everyone needs to have 5 years?
I don't know.
Like it's I have no idea. But anyhow, the Clippers and their treasure of picks that they owe to the Thunder, it's a nice addition because they are currency. If
Yeah.
somehow the Clippers are semi bad next year, but not horribly bad, you the 2026 pick has an immense value no matter where it will land
Oh yeah.
because like people can really will project the value and the Clippers can do anything. They are in LA, so but if like by the middle of the year they are atrocious, but not that atrocious, like maybe the 10th worst team, Like now, that bullet that you have at the deadline is such an incredible bullet.
Yeah, it
And
really
guess
is.
what? Any contract that you still have on the books, like Lou Dort, Kenrich Williams, one of the two contracts that you just signed, those get you in the 35 minutes territory. With that pick, you can get to anything. So I'm not advocating for that to be necessarily a pathway to what OKC has to do in the future, but it's an opportunity, like a sensational opportunity, even as a trade chip.
Yeah. Yeah, the flexibility that they have moving forward is still there.
Yeah.
And just like having the draft capital there. I mean, heck, if it's going to be a top 5 pick in the draft, add him to the team.
Yeah, sure.
Add him to the team. You have a long runway with cost control, and you could probably bring them off the bench. And if they develop, I mean, like, shoot, especially in next year's draft, like the way that people talk about next year's draft, if somehow, I mean, it would feel a little bit like the Pistons when they got the second pick in the draft, you know. So back in 03. So I just think that they hopefully they just don't take the big European guy, you know, and just mess
Well,
it up.
they already have it, so it's not or European-ish in Hartenstein, so it's that's fine.
Yeah.
Mostly fine.
Let's take a break and then we'll come back. I haven't talked to Michele about the draft, so we'll talk about the draft a little bit. We'll be right back. Crickets.
A lot of insects.
And we're back after that quick break. Michele, we haven't talked since the draft on a podcast.
Wow. Yes, it's true.
Yeah. Last Wednesday and Thursday, let's just talk about Topic. The Thunder took Nikola Topic at the 12th pick yesterday. What were your thoughts? What do you think about him?
I think that there weren't other guys that I would picked in that spot ahead of him, because I do think that the plan with Giddy was a good plan, and Topic has some things that can work a little bit better for OKC, something a little bit less. For example, the rebounding and the body strength. It's in favor of Giddy right now, but he is a talent. And I know that the 2 games at the Red Star were not really great games, but it's the sample size is so slim, and in Europe, it's not that you get from Mega to EuroLeague, and it's a 2-game adjustment period. It's almost like if you evaluate J-Dub from his first 2 games in the playoffs or in the play-in last year. I mean, it's a different brand of game. So I'm not really here saying, okay, those 2 games were terrible and blah blah. The stuff that we saw at Mega are extremely interesting and connect to what I was saying before, that in the second unit, if you have a unit with Caruso, Topic, J-Dub, Hartenstein, Isaiah Joe, or Cason Wallace, I mean, that second unit has defense, has size, has passing, has shooting, and like a premier pick and roll player that Hartenstein can really thrive off. And you're resting your main guys. You're giving like another look. Yeah. And Topic is a 88% free throw shooter.
Yeah.
Which shows an extremely high touch, which bonds well with his finishing. He's a great finisher at the rim, granted, in a lower level competition compared to the NBA. So I really think that Topic can work on his 3-point attempts and looks and stuff like that in terms of location, in terms of like spot up versus off the dribble, but he has the potential to be a decent enough shooter. So for me, I know that McCain would have fit extremely well, but since we have seen what Presti has done, it makes sense to get something different, because you have already a lot of players that can feel what McCain, which I think will be a great fit in Philly, by the way. Yeah, awesome fit. I do think that this is actually a great pick for OKC. From you can say, okay, why not big men? You've seen it now, and you need to give those guys development minutes. Topic will not need that next year, of course, which is a plus because you can get into the system by not playing and just learning and being around the team. And then who knows what happens next year? The roster with the draft picks that they will have that we just discussed, it can be like completely. Sorry, I have insects all over me. It's again, it's a different look that I have here. So it's great. I really think it's a pick that will pay dividends for OKC.
Yeah, if you know you're going to keep Isaiah Joe, like if you know that you can get him on that contract, you don't need to take a smaller shooting guard. Like you just don't. And so those kind of guys were available. But if you have that in your back pocket that you think that is a possibility,
or Devin Carter, you have Caruso, you have Dort, you have many guys.
Jason Wallace, you have that archetype of player. And so I do think that we're working with a very limited amount of information, especially when it comes to the draft. In many ways, we're working with a very limited amount of information. I lost Michele. We'll see if we can get him back in here. But we're working with very little amount of information. And so trying to distinguish like between what player has what value, not only that, but then how does the roster take shape? And if you believe you can get Isaiah Joe and you believe that that's a possibility, then you probably don't take Jared McCain, because I don't think that he's like a huge upgrade over what Isaiah does. And Isaiah works in OKC. He's the plus minus king. You know that it works. And so you might as well just hang on to him. You get a high upside player in Topic that is shoot past dribble, that can come off the bench. And if he hits, man, like I don't even know what you do. Like you're already with the roster as is, like you are really set in a lot of ways. But if that guy hits, or if Dylan Jones hits, or if AJ Mitchell hits, like now, like it's an embarrassment of riches. And plus the Clippers picks that we were discussing earlier, I mean, we talked about, years before we got to this point today, how things could get pretty overwhelming pretty fast for Thunder fans. And like, we're there, like this is a outrageously good team that is just added to the roster. You're adding these draft picks. You have this future draft capital that seems to only be getting better. I mean, this is it, man. Like this is the vision of what you would have hoped, and like one of the best case scenarios, of what was going to happen when the Thunder started this rebuild and had all this draft capital and everything, and they've been able to. I mean, to be able to get Hartenstein and Isaiah Joe as free agents is pretty crazy. Like to just get those two, it's like 2 top 8 players, 2 top 6 players, or however you want to say it, like 2 of your best players that you just get through free agency. I mean, like you're not necessarily counting on that, especially in Oklahoma City. And so it's a very deep roster, and they still have potential to get better. And they haven't uncovered what any of these young guys can do when it comes to Dylan Jones, when it comes to Oos. Like, who knows what those 2 can do on the court. And after talking to Dylan the other day at the intro presser, I'm outrageously impressed with him as a person. And then he is such an unusual player that if it hits, it's like, I think it's really going to hit, just because he's a great rebounder. He's a great passer. He plays really hard. He thinks the game at a high level. I just think like there's room for that kind of guy on the Thunder roster.
Yeah, there is room. Not much, but this is if you find that Dylan Jones, serves your purpose better than a guy like Isaiah Joe in the future, this is amazing. Like, this is still an amazing thing, because you have Isaiah Joe and Wiggins and Lou Dort, and like you can name every player besides maybe the top 3, which are very hard to replicate, and to think that Dylan Jones can really play better than them. But you can move all those guys for value, for future value. Because if you look at the Boston Celtics, this is the third different iteration of the Boston Celtics after they got their guys. I think it's the third. The first one was with Kyrie, then with Gordo, then like this one basically, and maybe something in between. And in order to do that, you need to have assets. This is, I think, the first iteration of the Thunder. It can be successful. It can be mildly successful. It can be somewhat of a disaster if they fail to get over the first round for 2 years. It can happen. So I really think that, yes, we are excited today, as we should be, but the treasure of these rookie class and of the picks, it's important. Even if it doesn't pan out in 1 year, even if Dylan Jones is just a G League sensation and it's not an NBA player, maybe by playing with someone, it will improve the chances of that someone to be an NBA player in the future. So having a competitive G League team that really plays the same brand of basketball that you can see in the grown-ups, it's also a very, very important thing of what OKC does. So I mean, if you want to talk about Jones a little bit more, I'm really into the fact that he is a do-all kind of player. He can play defense, not a great defender at Weber State, mainly because of responsibilities, I think. He has all the tools to be a player that can make an impact there. The grab and go is something that is so thundery, and it can really help the pace of the game. He's a great rebounder, and he's a great guy who can run in transition and make a pass, like a one-handed pass, which if you have shooters like Isaiah Joe and with Wiggins and players like that, that can really hit in transition, open threes, and you have a guy like that, I mean, this is such a value. So I really like the pick. I watch a little bit of Mitchell. Is another like well-rounded guard that maybe will take 1, 2, 3 years to really be ready to play somewhere. And if that somewhere is OKC because you had to make some consolidation trade and maybe go after some pricey veteran to fix some of the issues that will come forward in the future, then you may have like a cheap, ready player at your disposal in the future. And maybe it's another guy with I know some second round picks for OKC that didn't work out, and that is still okay to pay Lindy Waters and cash to get another look to a guy. It's exactly what you should do.
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a small price to pay for a player that you really want to get a good look at. He's also so well spoken and just like very thundery in a lot of ways, and he's got. I mean that dude can really get buckets. AJ Mitchell. I mean he's really fun. If you're looking for a good time this year, you might go to a G League game. Just watch AJ Mitchell play. Honestly,
and ooze,
and put some ooze on it. Get some ooze on it. Let's go to some super chats. We have Mutombo Dumbo asks, any cap space left? Batum for the vet minimum. Batum's gone. Batum's going to sign with the Clippers. And I think they do still have some wiggle room, but I don't know. I really honestly don't know what they're going to do with it. But I look at the roster now and it's pretty good. I think they're in pretty good shape.
How many roster spots do they have?
I think they have one left. I believe they have one roster spot left. So we'll see what happens. You know, you can bring back Moose if you want him on the roster. I don't know. I don't know I don't have any idea what they're going to do. And then Adam Loves Horror says, love the pickups and the pod. Is Chet the power forward most games? I don't know, because the thing I do know about Chet is that the advantages that he creates as the center are what unlocks so many things for the Thunder. And so I do think like there's going to be a lot of minutes with him as the center still. Like I can't imagine that they're just going to be like, all right, you're a power forward now. I do think there is a lane for him to defend as a big wing and as a guy that can play that position. I do think like that is certainly a possibility, but I still in my gut believe that Chet as the primary center is like the best thing for this team and the best thing for them to grow into. They just now have another way of playing with Hartenstein that they didn't have last year, and just have the versatility to do a little bit more. And so it was something that I didn't know if they would do. I didn't know if they would have the spending power to go get somebody like this. I didn't know if they would want to do that. I didn't know if I didn't know. I just frankly didn't know. But I can see the vision behind it, and I can see how you could play those two together. But I'm curious to see how it unfolds, and what Mark specifically thinks about it as we move into the season, which we're very far away from now on July 1st,
We
2024.
we know what Presti thinks about the two center lineups. He specifically mentioned that in his exit interview, and he said that OKC had one of the best defensive rating of the league, with Chet as the foreman. I think that the thing that will surely change, well, there's nothing to be sure about, but I think that what we will see is more structured playing time with
Michele is frozen for me.
Chet will play 33 minutes, and Hartenstein probably high 20s. So there is a pretty big chunk of minutes that they will play together. And I think that those lineups can really be the starting units, and that's it. Or maybe a little bit more. Who knows? Depending on how it goes. It is related to how much Chet can become a shooter, like a willing shooter. Because if you have Dub and Chet hoisting 15 threes between the two, and you always have gunners like Joe, Wallace, Dort, Caruso, that lineup can work.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that this will be a 25 minutes a night kind of lineup. I don't think that. I think the Chet as center is still a lineup that OKC wants to see. And also, just Hartenstein at center is a lineup that OKC wants to see, with small players and shooters all around, which worked to the perfection in New York, with guys that like Hart, who can be a great guard rebounder. And this is where a guy like Dillon Jones may be functional in that role. So I really think that there are many blueprints. Chet being mostly a power forward, I'm skeptical. I think that Chet will still play most of his minutes at center, and maybe 12, 15 as the power forward.
Yeah. And I think Hartenstein's versatility gives you the ability for them to play together. Like, I just think that the way he moves, the way he thinks the game, the way he passes, I think that just opens things up for you. And just as the defender that he is, I just think that to me is extremely helpful to them. And they're just loading up on guys that just defended really well.
Yeah.
The rim defense from Hartenstein was elite last year.
Yeah.
I think that Hartenstein was 7th in field goal percentage allowed last year at the rim. Chet was 3rd. And so things are not going to fall off a tremendous amount when Chet leaves the floor like it did last year. And so that, to me, just having 48 straight minutes of just elite rim defense in a game,
that seems good.
Is great. It's a great thing to have. There's no question about that. And then you add Caruso to that too.
To have like two guys that are elite point of attack defender at all times, because you have Kaysen Wallace, Lou Dort, Caruso, and J-Dub, who is becoming a very good point of attack defender. You have 4.
Yeah, 4.
And then you have guys, still Caruso is one of them, and Shea is one of them, that can be like playmakers defensively, playing the passing lanes. You don't have any weak link.
Who's the worst defender on the team now? Like, who's the worst
Isaiah Joe
in the rotation? Yeah, it's Isaiah Joe. And Isaiah Joe got a lot better.
Exactly.
Year. He's okay. Yeah.
Yeah. There is nobody who can't play defense in the top 9 rotation, top 10 rotation. You would argue that besides Isaiah Joe, and maybe also Wiggins, who is not like a probably plus defensive player, that
he's good enough. Yeah.
He's good enough, sure.
Yeah.
But you think like with the starting unit, which is the great three plus two of probably Hartenstein, Caruso, and Dort, those are good to elite defenders.
Yeah.
Your sixth man is the guy who didn't start, who's an elite defender. Then you have Case and Wallace, who will be and was at times an elite defender. Like 7 guys with extremely high level. This is great. And then you have Wiggs and Joe and Jay Will. I mean, it's good. It's really good.
Yeah. Yeah. The defense is going to be outrageous. And then offensively, they have to really lean into their play style. And they've really got to figure out how to play together, how to get Shea and J-Dub off ball earlier so they can get the ball back in better position. And I think once they do that, and I think it's easier now that you have better shooting. I think it's easier now that you have good passing from the big position with Hartenstein. I think he will help with that. I just think like that they're just in such a prime position now. And you have one of the youngest rosters in the league. You have a team that is going to get ready for the playoffs. I think that now too, like we were going into last season, we didn't know what they were or what they were going to be. You know, we had so many wrong predictions about where they were headed at the beginning of last season. Like we just didn't know. And now that you know, like this is a playoff contender. This is a title contender moving into next season. I think you can view the team so much differently through that lens. And I think the team can practice so much differently through that lens and come into the season ready to refine what they do, you know, ready to refine the way that they play. Not that they weren't trying to do that, but I think with a better glimpse of like what can be accomplished, I think like they can grow exponentially. And I also think that the way that the playoff experience is going to help them grow exponentially. And so it's very exciting. I can't wait to see these guys play. I'm excited for Summer League. There's a lot of fun players that are going to be in Summer League now.
Too bad that Case is not playing.
I know. That was one thing that Mark told us the other day was that Case and Wallace is likely not playing in Summer League, which was disappointing. But it just means
half a game, Mark. Come on, just one game.
Just gives us more AJ Mitchell, you know, for Summer League, which I think will be a lot of fun. So, okay. Thanks so much for tuning in. We've got tons of people on the live stream, tons and tons. One of the biggest Monday live streams we've ever had. So please, if you could just hit the like button, that's all I want you to do is hit the like button. Hope everybody's doing well. I'll have another pod for you on Wednesday, breaking down more of this. Alex and I will probably talk more league wide as well, as we just uncover who this Thunder team is going to be and what the West looks like. The Mavs, I don't know. I think the Mavs got better today, getting Klay Thompson. They're at least a little bit more interesting today, so we'll discuss that and all the moves that are made. Hope everybody's doing great, and we'll talk to you guys again on Wednesday.